Hi, everyone. It's our bi-weekly product demo. So my name's Amelia Kramer. I'm the owner here at Upwards Art Studio. We have new name tags, aren't they funky? Yeah, made those last week. So today we're demonstrating R&F Encaustic Paints. So I'm gonna go through a few things of how to use them and how great they are. So let's switch cameras. Okay, so I have my encaustic kind of set up here. I'm going to show two different ways to use them. One in the pots, which is the way that I learned how to use them initially, and then using your griddle as a palette. So there, I kind of have both setups going at the same time. Of course, you can do either way or both ways at the same time.
You said griddle.
Yeah, so this is a pancake griddle, so it's hot. So don't.
This is hot?
Yeah, that's
Oh,
hot.
God.
Yeah, it's hot. It's
Sorry.
it's
Why doesn't this other stuff melt?
it is melted. Oh, on the outside because
the containers here.
the containers are made of stainless steel. The stuff in them is melted.
Right.
Yeah. So painting with encaustic is painting with wax. Yeah, I wasn't gonna cover that part of it, but yeah, so on my griddle, so this is a pancake griddle, it's oversized. So it keeps everything hot. The waxes, as medium, I'm using my own store-made medium, which I make with Canadian beeswax and damar resin. Obviously the damar resin is not Canadian. However, I get it from the Canadian distributor, and then I make it in store. The ratio is 5:1. So these are melted into these pots. And then I've added some color to some of the pots already just to kind of get us started.
So in the colored pots, that's the same product.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I have some wax that's petroleum based.
yeah, don't use that.
Don't use it.
No. So this beeswax damar resin ratio, so petroleum wax is very brittle. And sometimes if it's a microcrystalline, then it's okay. However, it really stinks when it's melted. It is more flexible. This is hard when it dries, and comes to this like nice shiny finish. Yeah, paraffin wax, don't use. The heating temperatures of it are, yeah, it just gets crazy when it's heated. And even to clean your brushes, use a soy wax or encaustic medium. Okay, so that's just kind of some like,
My wax is in little chunks in a bag.
yeah.
But I bought it so long ago, I'm not actually sure what it's made out of.
So you can test it by its melting temperature. I'll send you home with a heating chart of what temperatures different waxes melt at, and then you can kind of figure it out from there. Otherwise, like if you're set on using it, you can do that. Otherwise, maybe it's garbage.
It's good for candles.
Well,
for
maybe
candles,
not
yes.
even good. Maybe not even good for candles, right? Because if there's too much paraffin or something, like you don't want to be burning that, because once you get like open flame, then it's hotter than this, right? Like, so I don't know. I wouldn't. Anyway, so this is a cradle panel that I've gessoed with R&F Encaustic gesso. So you do need the special gesso for encaustic. It has less acrylic binder than regular acrylic gesso. And then I have this one, which is kind of started. So this one doesn't have any gesso on it because I really didn't care. Because obviously you can't see the bottom. So yeah, that's a personal preference thing. So I'm going to use both of these just to show you, what it looks like on a white background, just so that you can really see the colors, and then what it looks like on something that's already like in progress. Okay, so the encaustic, the R&F pigments come in, my camera's really crazy here today, come in these, there we go, in these 40 milliliter blocks. So they come in a range of sizes or a range of colors. They actually do come in different sizes. This is the only size we have in the store right now. And So you melt this and then add the carrier encaustic medium to it. Okay, so on the labels, it will say whether the paint is transparent or opaque or semi-transparent or whatever. They don't have that little square that says how to read paint labels. Anyway, so the thing with this is knowing that an opaque color, no, a transparent color will never be opaque, like ever. Like you'd have to add some other type of pigment to it to make it opaque, like a titanium white. If it is, that's also transparent. This one's opaque. This is a King's Blue. And so it's opaque, but I can make it transparent. So it works one way, but not the other. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. Okay, so to get started, so lots of us paint with encaustic in these pots. That's kind of, if we learned, even 15 years ago, that's kind of how everybody was doing it. So I have this one with some King's Blue in it already. I have some malachite turquoise. Wait, what is this one called? Malachite green. So there's kind of two ways to get the encaustic from the block form into the pot. So with taller ones, I find I can just, if my pot isn't super filled with wax, I can kind of just put it in and stir it around. There's not really a ratio. I don't use a firm ratio. Sometimes I get those questions of like what ratio to put to, like how much of this to use to that. I don't have a set ratio because I do want to change the transparencies as I go. So there's not really a set one. I would never use more than 50% of this to the encaustic medium. And really, you don't need to even use that much to get an opaque color opaque. So the other way is if your block is too big, this one's still fine, but you can shave it off with an X-Acto onto a piece of paper. This was working better when it wasn't so humid in this room. So you can just shave it off.
Have you ever used a cheese grater?
No, because I'm also not very strong. And then you can put that into your pot. So again, I'm not very coordinated or delicate, so we'll see how much of this actually gets into my pot. And if it wasn't so humid, it wouldn't be sticking to my paper that I've put it on. I did try like a whole bunch of different types of paper. I should have tried parchment, but anyway. Yeah, so there I can adjust the color by adding, not adjust the color, adjust the opacity by adding more of the pigment. Okay, and then we're just gonna do this quinacridone red as well, and we'll just put it in this way. Yeah. So I'll use all of these in the pots and then use them straight on the palette.
Boy, I've got a lot of pigment in it.
Yeah, so I equate them to watercolor, right? Like a tube watercolor. A tube watercolor is tiny, right? But you get a lot of paint out of it. These you get a lot of paint out of them. So that's kind of how I explain them to people who aren't who don't paint with encaustic all the time. Okay, so I've got, just gotta get these out of the way. Okay, so I'm just going to paint right on. So the other thing you can do is I have these handy cards in the studio. So they're just like white leftover cards from stuff, and I can check the opacity of these. So that's really like a glaze. That's pretty transparent as well. Right, and then I can just check them as I go. And if I want to punch any of them up, I would add more of the pigment. This one, we'll see how we go. Okay. Right, and I can just paint right onto my panel. This one's gessoed with the R&F gesso. 3 coats standing in between.
Really?
Yep. And then we'll do some red beside it. And so the whole thing with encaustic is, and I should have picked a smaller board, I guess. because I don't really want to fill the whole thing right in this, is that you paint in layers, right? So with that, you do have to paint one layer at a time. So, and that's just a rule of encaustic. So as you go, so I'll paint one layer. So it's like oil glazing or acrylic glazing that you're working in glazes. Okay, and I'm gonna fuse it.
Is that drying it basically?
What it's doing is heating it up.
Oh,
So
it's not drying it.
no, it's not drying it because it's already like, here, I'll just put some new stuff down somewhere. So even if you just wait a few seconds, you can touch that now. Like it's already dry.
Oh.
Right, because it's wax. So as you go, so what happens, the fusing sinks it into the board initially. And then as you build up layers, instead of having a lot of thin layers that can flake apart, you end up having one big solid mass of wax, which is more difficult for it to break later on. Okay, so I've got this layer down now, and I can put some color over top and see what they do. So still trying to paint in one layer, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it is.
And then let's get some of this blue somewhere.
So why do you heat it?
So you heat it so that one layer sticks to the layer below, basically.
Makes sense.
Yep. We'll just, I'll just fuse the new parts.
Oh my gosh. When I was here last, I bought a book on this. So I'm very curious. I don't know anything about it. Do you know how to do this?
Yeah, so
She's
this
my mentor.
panel's a little cold. I can see all of these pinholes and stuff. So I should have heated this panel up beforehand. This one is going to be cold too, and it's got wax on it. So I am just going to heat it up before I even start.
Nice.
And I find encaustic is really tactile, right? Like I feel like I'm always touching my board to see how hot it is and whether it's too hot to accept the new layer of wax or if it's good. Yeah.
Neat, eh?
Right. So it's better if your board is warm, and really as you like I can keep going on that, and I will. What am I trying to say here? I forget what I'm saying.
Layer up.
Yeah, like the bubbles and stuff, as I add more layers of wax, they'll just disappear. And really, they don't have them. Like, is it really encaustic, but like, why don't you paint with acrylic resin if you're so obsessed with it being super flat and all those things? So I can put this, like, this one's a glaze, right?
Yep.
So it's looking really nice over that white.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just using natural bristle brushes because synthetic ones will melt. And actually I can bring it right over the top
Yeah.
of this. Hands obsessed.
Yes, I'm obsessed.
Yeah. Good. Nice.
And so as encaustic dries, it does this like fogginess thing and then goes more clear. So we'll set that aside and see what this glaze looks like in a minute. So oftentimes I'm working on more than one at a time. Okay, so we've kind of used the pots a bit. So let's use the, I just have like a disastrous mess over here. Let's use the griddle as a palette instead. So this is more like traditional painting where you'd have a palette and you're mixing colors together on your palette. And I'm not the cleanest at this, so let's see how this goes. So this is just the bottom of my pancake griddle. So when you put the colors on it, you know, the red you can really see. Let's see if you can see this one. right? You can yeah. You can kind of see it, but once you get into a yellow,
Mm,
Gosh, you got a lot of stuff.
right? It's hard to, that wasn't the best example, but sometimes it's hard to see what color they actually are. And then over here, so to use this, I have a pot that is like a mud pot. So it's just got all my brushes in it. Some of the brushes had color on them already. And what the wax is doing is kind of cleaning my brushes as I go. So I'm just, oh, and I need to thin this out. So I have a pot of just the straight up medium. And I'm just going to water it down, basically not water it, thin it. Because there's no water in this. And then I can use my brush. So this would be just the red as normal. And then I could maybe mix a little bit of that turquoise and get kind of like a purpley tone. So maybe I like more of that, right? Because the red is kind of a little bit more opaque. So obviously pancake griddles are meant to like, to
Cook pancakes?
to cook pancakes, right? And there's a grease trap and the whole thing is actually just on this little slant. So you can prop this up with a little piece of cardboard or something. I don't really care right now.
Okay.
So I can use, so what I always end up doing is just like mixing all the things together on this because yeah. Right, so I can get slight shifts in the color as I go. So more of a painterly way of using it, and there's some sort of junk there.
Jeepers.
Right, maybe I want to bring back some of this
Hey, you
purple.
said it's wax mixed with what?
Damar resin, which is like a crystal
Is that
ice.
here?
That's
So
the medium
they look the
altogether.
same.
No, that's all medium. The damar resin looks like is crystallized. I don't have any right available in front of me.
So this is strictly wax.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna talk about
That
encaustic as a whole. I was just gonna do the paints. So now I have this like dirty palette. So we'll just add some blue, thin it out. Right, so this is gonna be kind of more like a dirty blue now. And this, I had stuff on already. So I can just shift that a little bit. And if you, obviously, if you have nicer brushes, right, like these ones are actually from R&F. There's other companies that make like a hockey brush like this, and the paint goes on a lot smoother. And you don't get all that extra.
Where's this company located?
They're located in New York State. And they're hold on just a second. Their like business manufacturing location also has a gallery, and you can also see all of the product. I'm pretty sure you can see the product being made as well, perhaps. But yeah, that's definitely a road trip. So yeah, so like mixing on the palette, it's just straight on the griddle. It's hard to see the color shifts really accurately. So an alternative to that is, I'm just gonna put these back because they're dirty. So I'm putting them in my bun pot.
Certainly beats pottery colors.
I'm just gonna wipe that up just a tiny bit and move this down. Maybe.
What is the silver thing there?
So this is an encaustic coast printing plate. So so it's made of anodized aluminum, and what you can do with it is print. Like that's what they're made for, but you can also use it as a palette, and you can actually see the actual colors, right? Because it's like gray palette paper.
Like a medium gray.
Yeah. So you can see the colors way more accurately, right? If I had, right, this is toned with the black, right? And you can see it with this. That's pretty close, but. And again, it's just those little shifts in color. And then thin those out again. And then you can use your brush to pick them up. We did fuse all this, yeah.
That's remarkably thin.
Yeah, and you can get it thicker, right? Like if I added more, if that was too thinned out, I could add a bit more. That's the nice thing about the palette instead of the cups, because the cups you're limited to what's in there.
Mm-hmm.
You can shift the opacity, but you're shifting it for the whole pot rather than, right? So that's a lot more opaque than this one, even though it's the same color.
These are really opaque.
Yeah, those ones are they're different colors. This red, so let's try to do that with the red as well. That's still pretty opaque right off the bat. I can shift the color a little bit to that purple. That's lovely. Right, so there's really with these pigment blocks, I never know what to call them because there's not really a great name for them. So I call them encaustic blocks or encaustic pigment blocks because I feel like there's not really a standardized name for them, like acrylic paint. Do you know what I mean? So anyway.
Wax paint.
Yeah, so you can right, you can make little shifts within your painting if you're painting straight on the palette.
You ever tried anything other than?
Say that again.
You ever have any accidents?
The only thing that really ever goes on fire is the paper towel in a glass.
Okay.
The only time I've ever burnt myself is somewhere here on my arm at a workshop, and somebody put we were using the paint stripper heat guns, and they put the nozzle up, and so when I went to grab it, it fell on my arm and burnt my arm. That's the only time. I've never burnt myself on this. I've never burnt myself on the embossing one. Never burnt myself on the iron, the snowbird iron or the encaustic iron. Yeah. So that's kind of the different ways of using the R&F pigments. They're lovely, right? So these are made with the carrier for the pigment is damar resin and beeswax. So it's just so these have more pigment than, obviously this doesn't have any pigment, but these are the same things, just one with a large amount that I almost swore, a large amount of pigment in it. That makes sense. Okay. Anything else anyone wants to see with respect to these?
Could you do a quick print off of the anodized?
Yeah, do you think I have
Plate?
rice paper available?
Oh, shoot, do you want me to look? Sorry, that's on me.
What kind of
Rice
paper do you
Look,
need?
this is rice paper.
Yay.
Rice paper?
So, right, so I have paint on my palette. Thanks, Anne, for recommending this. I have paint on my palette that, you know, I could try to get onto this painting, but I can also just, you know, at the end of the day, print it. So I'm not going to get a newsprint in like a Baron or anything. I'm just going to try to lift it this way. Actually, that's got a lot of wax on it, so it left some pull marks. So we'll get another one here.
Rice paper.
Yeah, so rice paper is super absorbent. So if you're doing encaustic monoprinting, this is what type of paper you'd usually be using. There's other types of paper you can use too. Let's just try to pick all that stuff up. So right now I'm just spot printing, and I'm just using a tool that I have readily available because my Barons are somewhere in storage.
So, yeah, so you could actually use that later on an encaustic collage, correct?
Right, I can embed this paper later on.
That's the word I was
Yeah.
looking for, embed.
Yep. And it's already got wax on it. I won't do that because I don't have a heat gun readily available. But yeah, just move that out of the way. I don't want to mark it with my metal tool. That is one thing, is that that's so much wax on it. So it's doing these pull things because there's so much medium on that printing plate. If that doesn't, like when you're printing with these as a printing plate, you don't get all of those extra stuff because you're not really thinning it out. you can.
That's
But-
interesting finish there. isn't it?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So anyway, yeah, so that's a great way to clean off your palette, is just to have some extra rice paper or BFK Reeves printing paper around. And just kind of getting those last bits of stuff off your palette. And the Encausticos plates, absolutely get them off while your griddle is still hot. Otherwise they will stick themselves there. So I have some, we talked about this in the printing one. That video is available online. Watch me try to burn myself on this.
Nope. You done good.
Right,
Mm.
so, so
Good.
there's how to care for these in that separate video. Oh, that was hot. Okay. Yeah,
Awesome.
so to clean up, I guess that's something else, right? We did clean this plate. So I have silicone mats down here. So I can, so if I were at home, I'd still take out my brushes. Like even here, I take my brushes out of the pots. Because they're easier to store, right? If I'm trying to, if these harden like this, then I got this other brush
Mhm.
kind of in my way. So I take the brushes out. The pots actually reheat faster without the brush in them. That's just physics, right? Because it's not trying to heat the brush and the wax. It's just trying to heat the wax. So, and then in here, we take the pots off because we try to store everything nice and neatly and flat, right? Because I got lots of griddles, so I need them all to stack on top of one another. And I have these spring clips, right? They're like insulated spring clips. So they're like a clothespin, right? That if you grab both, your pot will fill out of your hand. If you grab just one, it just comes right off the griddle. And I always use like a bigger brush for my like thinning medium one so that I know what brush I'm using for what, right? It's obviously bigger than the rest of these, which are this is my mud pot with my trying to clean my brushes as I go.
Visual reminder.
Yeah. I do for other classes have like blue handled ones,
Mhm.
but this is when we do this one in class, we use these
So when-
because, so that's just with the wax hardened, right? Once the wax is dry.
Amazing.
Yeah, so if we're just doing a regular encaustic class and we're mixing in pots, we use these ones with the blue handle. But if I use, I find that if I use the blue handle one here, all of the brushes are look the same.
Mhm.
So to me, this is like a more of a visual reminder of what brush to actually use. Yeah, so we have the full line of these 40 mil. No, that's not a 40 mil. Of these 40 mil encaustic paints from R&F. We also have their pigment sticks, their gesso, their encaustic medium. What else do we have from them? And some other stuff. And some of their instructors will be teaching at the 2025 Canadian Encaustic Conference. So look for that.
Which is here.
Which is going to be in Owen Sound.
Mhm.
In September 2025. So we do have an online exhibit call right now. Near and far, it's open. It's open, I think, till end of July or mid-August or something. So it's an online call. Anything that is encaustic can be entered. I'm going to switch cameras because you're looking at my clean spot. Replace spotlight. Yeah. So so that call is for encaustic art with the theme of near and far. That's basically all it is. It's not juried in any way. The online form is available on the website. So the website is encausticconference.ca or .com, but .ca. And you can submit your work that way. There will be an artist talk opening. Again, can't remember the date, sometime in August or September of this year. Yeah. So, okay, so
So the girl at the BMFA who does a little encaustic, she often has a tree in it, or she does birds or animals and stuff. So she just paints it on with a small brush and then she blows it.
yeah, she could paint it on with a small brush. It could be ink, it could be transfer paper, it could be put on with a stylus, which is a separate tool for encaustic. Could be a jaunting tool. There's a lot of different ways to get a specific line. Yeah. But that's a course
That's
rather
a
than a
course.
demo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So thanks everyone.
Thank you.
So follow us on socials at, oh, look at this weird bunch of hair. That always happens in Zooms, right? That you're like, oh, maybe I should have looked in the mirror. Anyway, so follow us on socials at Upwards Art Studio. Our website is upwardsartstudio.com. We are located in Owen Sound, Ontario, Canada. And on YouTube, you can subscribe to our channel, and the username is Upwards Art Studio because nobody else is named that. So we get to claim every possibility of that. Anyway, have a great week. We'll see you next week. I don't know what the next one is because I don't think I've scheduled it. Okay, thanks everyone.